Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Tonight marks the official kickoff of the Town of Lake Placid strategic planning process. This effort is about making thoughtful decisions on purpose rather than reacting later when choices become more difficult or more expensive. At its core, strategic planning helps a community decide where it is going and how it will get there, while staying true to its values. How our plan works together. It is important to start by explaining how the town's plans fit together. First, the comprehensive plan is a legal requirement under Florida law. Every municipality must have one, and it sets the basis for rules by where our homes, our businesses, and public facilities can be located, how land can be used, how infrastructure such as roads, water, and sewer should grow over time. The comprehensive plan answers the question, what is allowed and where is it allowed? What it does not always answer is, what should happen first? What matters most to residents right now? Or how to turn policies into real projects? That is the role of a strategic plan, and that's why you are all here. Why does strategic planning matter? The strategic plan helps the town to set priorities, use tax dollars responsibly, plan improvements before problems arise, and make sure that decisions today still make sense years from now. This strategic plan is designed to work alongside our current downtown revitalization plan, which focuses on strengthening our downtown as a place to live, work, shop, and gather, and our upcoming Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which will guide investments in our parks, recreation, and our public spaces. When these plans are aligned, the town avoids working in silos instead and moves forward with a clear direction. Utilities planning is coming up at our upcoming town council meeting on Monday, where we will be discussing infrastructure, especially our water, our wastewater, and our utilities. This is one of the most critical pieces of our long-term planning. Town Council will have a request to initiate a strategic utility master plan, and this plan will be developed to work alongside our existing and evolving regional utilities framework. The purpose of a strategic utility master plan is to evaluate the current and future capacity needs, plan for growth in a responsible and an affordable way, coordinate with regional utility partners, protect ratepayers by planning investments ahead of time rather than reacting later, and ensure that utility decisions align with the strategic plan and comprehensive plan. Utilities are long-term investments that last decades. Planning now allows the town to avoid emergency projects, improve grant reliability and eligibility, and ensure infrastructure decisions to support but not limit our future and our growth. So why does the community play a vital role in this? Because planning is especially important for our small towns. Without it, decisions tend to happen one project at a time without a clear long-term vision. Communities across Florida that have planned early and intentionally have seen strong results. I'll give you a few examples. Winter Park used coordinated planning to encourage redevelopment while protecting its character. Mount Dora aligned downtown, parks, and economic planning to strengthen tourism and the quality of life. And our very own Sebring used long-range planning to guide downtown investment and infrastructure improvements, which we have all seen. These communities did not grow by accident. They planned, prioritized, but they also followed through. What this means for the town of Lake Placid is that this process will help us prepare for future growth while protecting what makes the town very unique. It will align our infrastructure, public safety, utilities, parks, and our downtown investment. It also strengthens our ability to secure grants and outside funding. And this makes decisions for our council, for our residents, that are clear, fair, and transparent. The strategic plan and the future strategic utility master plan will guide budgets, our capital projects, and policy decisions, not just this year, but for many years to come. We have many opportunities for the public to be involved. Tonight is just the beginning of this process. It is not the end. There will be additional sessions where residents, Business owners, boards, and partners can share their input and help shape the priorities. These conversations matter because good plans reflect the community that we serve. You do not need technical knowledge or planning experience to participate. If you live here, you work here, or you care about the town of Lake Placid and you call the town of Lake Placid home, your perspective is important. At this time, I would like to go through some of the slides. So our goal tonight is to provide an enduring living document for elected officials, decision-making bodies, and the community to review and access on a regular basis. A strategic plan will define the vision for the future. It will identify the goals and the strategies, prioritize those goals, and identify the steps that we need to reach the shared vision. It should be easily shared and understood, and it will guide the local decision-making. Our strategic plan will give us our first vision and mission and also our guiding principles. And then this is the QR code where you can do a survey. Is that up and running now, Jennifer? It is. Okay, it is up and running. So we have future plans. We have a Tuesday, February 3rd. There will be a session with our local businesses and the faith-based organizations. We have February 18th with the Town of Lake Placid residents. And then we have a wrap-up session on Wednesday, March 4th. They will all begin at 5:30 and we plan to end at 7:30. At this time, I would like to move into the next portion where we'd like to introduce Mr. Ken Small. We are pleased to welcome him, who has over 40 years of experience in Florida municipal government. Mr. Small began his career in Port St. Joe, Florida, and later spent more than 31 years with the Florida League of Cities. During that time, he worked directly with the cities across the state of municipal finance, budgeting, revenue options, and operational efficiency. He also previously served as a city manager and in the county administration as he assisted with the Lake Placid and past efforts for our communication tax. Mr. Small is here to help us explain how thoughtful planning supports financial stability and responsible decision-making. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Ken Small.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Mayor Holbrook, members of the Town Council, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. It's nice being retired. Traveled the state tremendously for over 31 years and helped a lot of cities, and I'm here as a retired Florida League of Cities person trying to see what I can do to help you out. Talking about the planning aspect, your planning parts is more of your expenditure side. The big part is how you're going to pay for it. And we have, I guess the legislature's throwing us a curve later this year. The session is just now starting. They said they're going to have one or more constitutional amendments on the ballot affecting property taxes. We're not sure which way it's going to go. They have numerous legislators have said that when they put it on the ballot, they're going to have provisions that says they're going to protect what they call essential services. And it seems their definition of essential services are public safety, police, fire, teachers, and education. So what I'm hearing right now from a variety of sources is, as it affects the town of Lake Placid, they're stating that they're going to have statutory language that you cannot lower the police department's budget if these provisions of lowering property tax do pass and go into effect. Right now, I want to go over from a high altitude thing what revenues cities basically have available to them. One very important part is municipalities in Florida have very limited resources when it comes to their choice of being able to fund their government. To start off with, the Florida Constitution grants local government, not state government, the right to levy the property tax. It's in the Constitution. The Constitution says that municipalities can levy up to 10 mills, $10 per $1,000 of taxable value. It also says that with a voter referendum to your residents, you can go above that 10 mil cap, but it's good for 2 years if the voters approve it. I'm aware of one city who's done that, and they used to do it every 2 years until property values got high enough they didn't have to be above 10 mills. They're a very wealthy city in Dade County. Beyond property taxes, which is pretty well, years ago, the Constitution set that up as our primary source of revenue. It also stated the legislature may, by state law, Florida statute, may grant cities additional revenue, taxes. In that case, it was following World War II, they gave cities the ability to levy the public service tax. That's the statutory name. We know it as the municipal utility tax. The industry of the utilities, they call it MUT, M-U-T for the abbreviations. In that case, you can levy up to 10% tax on electric service, metered and bottled gas, and water service. Telephone used to be in there, but around 2000, 2001, they were lobbied by the phone industry to make it a different tax, which then puts us to the second tax that the legislature created for us, and it's called the Communication Services Tax. Some people call it CST, some people call it the telecom tax. When they set it up, they looked at what each city and county's revenues were from taxes and fees on telecommunications, on communications. At that time, the town of Lake Placid had very, very small amount of revenues coming in, and thus their conversion rate, when they established it to bring in the same dollars, was a 1% levy. The legislature in that particular act gave each city and county the ability to go above that rate, which the town, probably around 2002, raised it to the 5.22%, which was the maximum rate allowed. There are other jurisdictions, cities in Florida, that have higher rates, but that was because their conversion rate gave them a higher percentage. The third tax that they gave us was called the local business tax. I saw on your website that you do levy it here. I don't know at what rate. The problem with that was the year that it was created, probably around 1995, they stated that you can appoint what was called a equity study commission made up of appointed by the city of some business people. They could come together, and if they considered possibly raising rates within certain limits, you could do that based on their recommendations. City council passed an ordinance, and you could go with a higher rate. I am not sure. A lot of cities did not do it. I tried to explain to different cities at the time, if you don't want to raise your rates, but why don't you just simply appoint an equity study commission, let them meet one time and say that we don't want to do anything, and it would have given you some additional revenue options in the future, but they did. A lot of cities, majority of the cities didn't do it. So whatever you have, you can't change those now. There are what we call home rule revenues. Basically, it's fees, charges, special assessments This is the area where you have the ability to charge for water service, for sewer service, for various services that your city provides, the ability to levy permit fees, things of that sort. Special assessments, I'm not going to go into that I'm just going to touch on that. There are two areas of special assessments that I see more frequently used. One is to provide fire service. The town does not provide fire service, so there's no need to talk about that one. Another one is using special assessment to fund your stormwater program. God, it was years ago, in Chapter 197, 3632, we got the legislature to allow special assessments to be put on the county tax collector's property tax bill so that you didn't have to collect it individually. And there's a process for doing that. And basically, you give notice to the tax collector and property appraiser so much in advance of when the tax roll would come out, almost a year, and you could work towards that. I understand that you do not have a stormwater program as of yet, but that's an opportunity to use a funding mechanism like that to pay for it. All right. I've spent some time with Charlotte and with Rachel and going over some of your things, and I have some observations. Just said you don't have a stormwater program in place. I'm assuming there is no natural gas in your city limits. It's basically bottled gas, propane. Under the area of utility tax, it appears that you're levying it on electricity and bottled gas, but you haven't levied any on the area of water service. This is potable water as well as reclaimed water that is sold within the city limits. That's a tax of up to 10%. A lot of cities levy a 10% tax on water service, but like the town here, if they don't levy it on everything, it's usually they don't levy it on their own water, but that's an option. Your millage rate of 3.65 mils is in the lower threshold in the state. I haven't had an opportunity to look at the current millage rates in ascending or descending order, but I'm very, very sure that you're well below the average millage rate, and you're probably fairly well below the median millage rate in the state. 365 is definitely in the lower half. I didn't have time to go through your funding of the utilities and whether the city has a program like many other cities have of doing a transfer of excess funds, usually in the area of 10% of your water and sewer revenues, to come back to the general fund as a transfer to general fund. A lot of cities in the utilities areas have those transfers back. Some cities have that at a lower rate, and they create an indirect cost program where different areas in the budget, primarily those in other funds that have revenue sources, they reimburse general fund for their portion of the fixed cost of running the city. Actually, they're applicable part of that because, anyway, here's an area, I guess I was very surprised. We got into the discussion of garbage and your equipment, about replacing equipment and different things of that sort. And I asked the question, well, what are your garbage rates for residential? And I guess the answer was, we don't charge for garbage. That's a real luxury these days. If you can do it, that's wonderful. Comes out of basically out of your property tax. But it's an area that I know some cities that were in financial distress. City of Miami was one of those, and they had been doing that, and the state was trying to get them to start charging for garbage collection, both residential and commercial, as a way to solve their financial difficulties. And I think they rejected it for a long time and finally were able to do it. And to a lesser degree, whenever I've gone into a city, and I know whenever I went to work at a city and got into user fees, just your various user fees where you charge for different things within your city, I've always found them, let's just say, always isn't the right word, but it was rare that I ever found a city or county that updated their user fee charges regularly. A lot of them that I went to, they may have set them 25 years ago and never changed them. But again, you can look at those. You don't have to spend all this time going through them all at one time. You can pick and choose which ones you want to evaluate and go from that aspect, and be sure to get your fringe benefit. A lot of people look at only the salary, the hourly salary of the employee. They don't compute into the cost of fringe benefits into that as an hourly basis, and you miss an awful lot that way, including vacation and sick leave and things like that, because those are all applicable costs when you're trying to reimburse yourself for various user fees. I guess at this point, I could entertain questions of anything in a related area that you may have. I know I tried to cover it very broadly, so if you get into specifics, I'll do my best to try to answer any kind of specific question you have.
Just clarification on the garbage. We do charge for residential garbage. So was there some
Then I was
miscommunication?
mistaken then.
Yeah, it's a non-ad valorem tax on the property tax bill. It's like $290 a year now?
Right, I think what it was, yes, ma'am, you're correct. I think, and Rachel, I was looking for you to help out on this, but when we did the calculation, once you calculate out everything, they're basically getting it for pretty well nothing, even though there is a charge. Whenever we go through and calculate staffing, gas, and all of the other that comes into it, it basically ends up being pretty well nothing in the wash. So they're getting it. There is a charge to them, but whenever you calculate everything in, it's pennies.
So that's how the charge has been calculated, but the residents do each have a garbage
Okay.
bill.
Okay, I
They're
don't know
being
how I
charged.
misunderstood
How we
that.
calculate it is a whole different discussion. If we're losing money on it, it was just increased, what, $40 a year? I mean, it was a
Right.
20% increase recently. Okay. And so this is all good on the revenue side, right?
What's that?
I said everything you just talked is how we can raise revenues.
There's a few areas, very few. Probably your largest one would be the utility tax on water.
That's absent today because we do have the 10% tax for town residents on electric. We also
Yes.
have franchise,
Yes.
a
I didn't
10%
get
on
into
franchise fees
'cause I
too.
figured you've already got,
Yeah.
it's
yeah, we
standard to
already-
have franchise fees on your electricity. Telephone is out of that now with the communication services tax. If you've got commercial haulers handling your commercial garbage and waste, many times cities set up a franchise program for the companies to pay the city percentage of their revenues. But I didn't, again, it was a cursory review. I hadn't had a lot of time to work and go through it piece by piece. I wasn't able to be here and go sit down and spend a day going through. But those are your ones that I was able to see that provided what I thought might be significant revenue. User fees, you know, they're going to be small compared to what you would get on the utility tax on water service, for example. I don't know how you're set up on your transfers from water and sewer utilities, whether there's monies coming back to the general fund or not. We never got into that. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I had a question on that. Not that we just raised our rates just to try to get ahead to balance out our utility departments. So we just did raise rates just to make it work. We're working on that, but I was interested. So you say that you could transfer 10% of utility, well, you could transfer money from the utility into the general fund, basically. But a lot of our customers are not in the town limits or not in our jurisdiction. So could you, eventually, if we considered that, whenever, how does that work when people are not in the town limits to it doesn't matter?
There's no bearing, because
Okay.
you're basically, I've been retired now 9.5 years. There used to be a provision in statutes where you could levy a tax of up to 25% on residents outside the city limits. There's been discussions I've seen over the years where the legislature was wanting to get rid of that. But the area that I'm talking about isn't a tax on individual customers, whether you're in or out. It's the thing of the operation of your city utility as a whole.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And when I said 10%, I was just saying, for example, the city manager of Madison a number of years ago had me come up to their city and try to get their council from flying into a state of financial emergency. They were transferring from their water department an amount equal to 105% of the charges for water service. I've never heard of anything like that. But of course, their utility was collapsing because they had no money for maintenance. So when you establish your rate structures, I always suggest, I don't recommend, I suggest you keep the transfer at a lower end, and you build your, with your engineers, when you do your rate structures, you make sure that your rates can cover your repair and maintenance as well as your expansion from time to time with your system.
So this is all on the revenue side, which is, growing money for us to spend. What's equally as important is to look on the cost side to see what efficiencies can be in place to kind of reduce costs. So then, you've got excess money there. Is that's something you're going to be looking at also? And this is just the revenue report out of where we are today, but maybe some opportunities we might have.
No, that's a very complicated, that's like hiring a consultant or having staff go through and review that on a department by department basis. I'm just here as a free speaker with a lot of knowledge on the revenue side and operating cities, and I just I was asked to give a presentation to try to educate you on possibilities you have going forward, not only with your comp plan and your other planning needs you're looking at, but what you're going to do if the legislature, a year from now, you're faced with dramatic reductions in property tax revenues. I mean, I'm happy to offer tips over the phone on how to look at stuff like that, but that's really something between administration and the department heads to get in and look at what is it you're really trying to do, and are we doing it in an effective, efficient manner?
I've got a question on the transfer of money. Make sure I understand this right. If the utilities, we're not in the position to transfer any money from the utilities to the town right now. We're just trying to get back on even ground. But if that day ever came, I thought there had to be like a separation of accounting between the utility fund and the general fund. But you're saying you can transfer?
Every city, practically every city I know of decent size, they probably couldn't do without it. City of Tallahassee, City of Lakeland, these are cities that have electricity, natural gas and stuff. They have large sums that they transfer from their utilities to their general fund. Even smaller cities, it's a routine because you're providing a lot of central costs that each department utilizes, and it's a way of recouping. I don't know what the case law is where they do it, but it's in cities across Florida who have utilities, the vast number of them do that. In the city of Madison, they can't be 4,000 or 5,000 population, but I don't know how in the world they got to where they were doing that, but I always tried to get people to be reasonable and keep it on the lower end rather than go overboard. And I mean, it raises the cost of utilities. You probably don't even want to think about this aspect at that, because if you're going to be forced into looking for additional revenue, you probably would look at the utility tax on water service and not even venture with that at this time.
If I could make a comment, Councilwoman Charles, Mr. Mark Lawson is a municipal utility attorney that Mr. Ken has put us in contact with, and so he specializes in utilities and also in sanitation. And then coming before you on the Monday night meeting, you will also hear about Mr. Fred Blocher. I don't know that I'm saying his name correctly, but he is from FAU, and so that will also be before you. We discussed that today in the regional utility meeting. So those will be other avenues where they will be able to look at that.
Any other questions? Any question you've always wanted to ask? I mean, at the league, if somebody couldn't answer a question, I was the one that got them. If they didn't even know what the question was, they couldn't figure out the question, I got those calls. Okay.
And Mr. Small worked with Commissioner Tuck when she was a clerk, and also with Rachel, and as I stated before, helped get the communication tax. So he's very vested in the town of Lake Placid and seeing us succeed. So we thank you for your time.
We'll be in touch. Thank you.
And he also said he would answer questions. Did you all hear that? He said that he would be happy to answer questions if you have any and you'd like to contact him.
You're free to give me a call sometime. Rachel has my number. Charlotte's got my number. Is that it? Thank you.
With your permission, I'd like to stand sideways so I don't have my back to everybody. Is that all right? And Ken, I appreciate your generosity and offering to answer questions. So any questions that I get, I will make sure that I highlight you to answer those for me later today. But anyway, good evening, and thank you for the town council and for everyone here for inviting me to be a part of this important conversation. Strategic planning is about shaping the future, and I'm here to share how small businesses are vital to Lake Placid and how the Florida SBDC at USF can support them. Before I jump into that, I did want to, just for those who are not aware of the SBDC, just kind of share a couple slides. The Florida SBDC at USF is part of a national network of small business development centers. So any state or U.S. territory you go to will have an SBDC. And this year marks the 50th year that the SBDC has been a program. So we've been around a little bit. We are primarily funded through the SBA, and we do get some state and local support to match those dollars. The state of Florida is broken up into 9 SBDC regions. The Florida SBDC at USF serves the 10 counties in West Central Florida, which includes Highlands County. You can see us there on the bottom left side. We are the largest SBDC region in the state of Florida, not by landmass, but by just size, population. For comparison's sake, just for the scope of the size of our region, our 10-county region here in Florida is comparable to the entire state of Alabama's SBDC, if you look at the population and scope of service. So we are quite large for SBDC standards. And this is a closer look at our 10-county region, and I know it may be hard to see, but all of the red dots are where we have either satellite offices or circuit ride offices where we either rotate through on a scheduled basis or have a full-time presence. So you can see we have a couple locations here in Highlands County, a couple over in Hardy and DeSoto, and of course throughout the rest of our 10-county region. This is our mission and vision. We do want to be Florida's trusted principal provider of business assistance and help small businesses launch and grow through resources and advocacy. And I won't get too far in the weeds, but everybody has a mission and vision statement, so I wanted to share that with you guys. And I'll just leave the slides for that. So in a nutshell, the mission of the Florida SBDC is to help businesses launch, grow, and thrive. And we do this through confidential and no-cost consulting services and training. We do this, some examples of what we offer are business planning and financial projections, guidance on managing cash flow and profitability, help accessing capital, whether through banks, alternative lenders, or SBA programs, marketing strategies and digital presence, and some specialized support for government contracting and growth planning. And this is just an overview on the February 3rd strategic planning session that's focused on local business and faith-based organizations. We're going to take a deeper dive into the full range of SBDC services and how we can partner with Lake Placid entrepreneurs. So back to the small businesses. Small businesses are the backbone of communities like Lake Placid. They do more than provide goods and services. They create jobs, they keep dollars flowing and circulating locally, and they give the town its unique character. When you think about what makes Lake Placid special, you think about local shops and restaurants and service providers, all of which are small businesses. And I'll share a quick example. My daughter-in-law bought her wedding dress right here in Lake Placid after an amazing experience at Bittner's Bridal, canceling appointments that she had at big box bridal shops in the following weeks. That's the power of local businesses. They deliver personal service and they strengthen community ties. Small businesses also build economic resilience. A diverse base of businesses help cushion the impact of economic shifts. And beyond economics, they contribute to civic life. Owners serve on boards, sponsor events, and invest in the community. In fact, if my research is correct, all of the town council members have entrepreneurial small business experience in their backgrounds. A 2024 analysis by Dr. Mansoor Kamatov from Indiana University shows that big box retailers and small local shops can coexist and even benefit each other. Big retailers draw traffic while small shops capitalize on personalization and agility, local expertise, hosting community events and private sessions, all advantages that big box stores can't match. Excuse me. I'm old enough to remember when they opened the Lake Wales Walmart across the street from Bridgemaster's Tackle and Fishing Shop, if you're familiar with that area on Highway 60 on your way out to Lake Kissimmee, and all the other lakes out there. Many assumed that Walmart would put them out of business, but Bridgemasters leaned into their strengths and still thrives today by offering services that Walmart can't match, including rod and reel repair, custom rod building, taxidermy, prop repair, licensing, and by maintaining a large and more complete selection of bait and tackle, including live bait. So some of the success themes for small businesses include deep local roots, tap into the community needs that you know best, host local events, develop partnerships with local artists and community organizations, personal service and unique offerings, provide curated products and high-quality services that resonate with your target market, agility and adaptability, launch pop-ups, rotate your offerings, and employ agile marketing. And strategic partnerships, tap into programs and channels like Chambers of Commerce, Main Streets, and other other Main Street, local, and trade associations. I lost my spot there. The Florida SBDC at USF is here as a partner, not to lead in the planning, but to make sure the voice of small businesses is part of the conversation. As priorities emerge, whether it's revitalizing corridors like Main Street or improving permitting, we can help translate those goals into practical steps for business owners. After the plan is adopted, we'll be available to support implementation by working directly with businesses. As Lake Placid plans for the future, thriving small businesses will be key to achieving your vision. If you own a small business or know someone who does, please connect them with us. We're here to help you succeed, and when small businesses succeed, the whole community benefits. Thank you. Any questions for me as well? Ken will take those. Anything from the dais? Anything from the group here? I know I did a good job, but I know I did that good of a job. So.
And just so everyone knows, you will be back on the 3rd.
Yes, sir, I will.
So we'll get more in depth with the businesses at that time.
Yes, sir. That's those slides I pulled out.
Yeah.
That's usually like a 20-minute presentation that talks about much more of what the
Right.
SBDC does.
Okay.
But I was
Just-
asked today to talk about how small businesses fit in to strategic planning and the role that they play. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about my organization. I wanted to spend the time talking about
Okay.
the role small businesses play.
Right. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you on the 3rd. Any
One
questions?
last thing is, if you didn't get one of these little brochures on the way in, it has some information about the SBDC and our services and how to contact us. If you didn't, I believe Charlotte put them on a table on the way out, so please visit our website. There's a lot more information there. I look forward to seeing you on February 3rd.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, Commission. Jeff Schmucker with the Regional Planning Council. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go through just a very quick few slides to talk a little bit about Lake Placid today. Just a couple of maps that I hope will invoke some thought, some questions. I think the intent tonight is to not necessarily leave here with all the answers, but as you leave here tonight, be thinking about Lake Placid, thinking about the greater area of Lake Placid, thinking about the discussions and the speakers that you heard tonight with the upcoming workshops and events that we're going to have to bring those questions back as we go through this process. Some of the things that we've heard in a number of other workshops recently with some of the downtown master plan work that we're doing. What is Lake Placid? What represents Lake Placid? It's welcoming, it's safe, it's walkable. We like the small town charm. I think everyone kind of echoes this, and we hear this again and again when we talk about Lake Placid. I'm going to skip through those, and I'm going to go right here. When we think about the town of Lake Placid, what do most people think? They think about the corporate limits of Lake Placid. Now, the folks who live in Lake Placid may be aware that there's other areas of Lake Placid, the greater area of Lake Placid, but when most people think Lake Placid, they think the corporate limits of Lake Placid. Well, that's the green area that you see there, 4.93 square miles, population in 2025 of just north of 2,000 people, with a median age of 44.2. Total households being 1,030, with those households having a household median income of about $48,000. However, there's a larger area of Lake Placid, and it's what's called the Lake Placid Regional Plan. This is a joint effort between Highlands County and Lake Placid. It's a growth planning area for what Lake Placid could be in the future. This is in the comprehensive plan. This is in the land development code, both the town as well as the county. As growth comes towards Lake Placid in the outskirts of the town, there's opportunities for that growth to be shaped the way that the town wants to see that happen, with eventually that area coming into the town. So when we look at the greater Lake Placid regional plan area, that's another 33.86 square miles. That's a considerably larger area than the town itself at 4.93. The population in this area, minus the corporate limits of the town, is 5,000 residents. That's more than double what the town of Lake Placid is, with a median age range of 62.5, total number of households in this area, 2,495 homes, with the median income of these households in 2025 at about $51,000 a year. Again, looking out beyond the greater Lake Placid regional plan area, the greater Lake Placid area holds with a number of historical subdivisions that are both developed, developing, and then a lot of area that still hasn't developed yet. But within those yellow areas that you see on the outskirts of the Lake Placid regional plan area, you've got a 2025 population of almost 12,000 people. All right, that's almost 5 times what the town of Lake Placid corporate limits is today. Again, median age range here, 54.6. Total number of households here, 5,000. That's double the amount of households, or I should say 5 times the amount of households that the town of Lake Placid has today, with a 2025 median household income of about $62,000 a year. Why is that important? When we talk about the strategic plan for the town of Lake Placid, it's more than just that green area. It's more than just the corporate limits of the town. The town has to think about that greater Lake Placid regional planning area, and it has to take into account those yellow areas that you see on the outskirts of that. The reality is the town of Lake Placid is the nucleus of this area. Where do most people go for their goods and services? Yes, a lot of people probably go up to Sebring, or they may go east or west on 70 to get specialized things or certain things that the town doesn't have today. But for daily needs, goods, services, for your pharmaceutical goods, for your grocery shopping, most of these people are coming into the corporate limits of the town of Lake Placid. So these are critical things that the town needs to think about in this strategic plan when we think about the future. We do have to keep in mind that we have a corporate limits, but there's an area that's going to grow as growth continues to come. Ken, yes?
When you're doing these numbers, like those numbers there, is that just the yellow areas numbers, is 11,932, and you would have to add them all together? Or is it adding on to the number
That's-
of the previous one?
That 11,000 is just the yellow areas.
Okay, so if you add that with the previous one,
The total population in all of this is about 19,390 people when we incorporate the LPRP and then the corporate limits of the town. Yep. But what's very telling here is you've got about 5 times the amount of population living on the outskirts of the town, but they use your services. They impact your infrastructure. They use your roadways. These folks have to go somewhere to get their groceries, get their goods and services. Many of the folks in the room here tonight, I don't know if you live in the corporate limits or you live just outside, but I'm sure you do your grocery shopping at Publix, or you come into the town to get the things that you need. So there's impacts on the town that the town needs to consider when we think about the greater area. Whoops. So I don't know if we call this necessarily benefits and challenges. It's some of the things that I was just mentioning. As growth occurs, and it will occur, there's benefits to that. There's innovation that comes with that. There's opportunities that come with that. new goods and services that might come with that, where we might not need to drive to Sebring anymore because there might be an opportunity for some new development in or near the town that might serve the needs of the residents and the adjacency of the corporate limits of the town. But what you see here, this is a map of vacant lands looking at the greater Lake Placid area, the Lake Placid Regional Planning Area, including the town, which represents an enormous amount of growth opportunity, and I say potential growth opportunity. And the reason we say potential growth opportunity is when we consider the amount of population that's out here, there's going to be market-driven development that's going to occur. Private sector will say, we have a population, we have a product that we want to sell, whoever that may be, and we're not tapped in yet, and we know that there's an enormous number of people in this area, we want to go there. Whether that comes into the town itself, whether it comes into that Lake Placid Regional Plan area, or it comes to the outside of that area, the probability is at some point in the future that market-driven development is going to come. So the town needs to be thinking about this. What are the things that we're deficient in? What are the things that we would like to see more of? You heard a little bit about revenues. You heard a little bit about small businesses tonight. Small businesses and big businesses can work together, right? As these things start to come to the table and these considerations that staff and the commission and your planning boards and your utility boards need to take into consideration is a lot of this stuff is going to eventually come. Where do we want it to come? Where do we want to see it come? Is it the right things that we want to see coming? How does it support the rest of the goals and the visions that we see for the town of Lake Placid? But the takeaway that I wanted to bring to you tonight is, let's not just think about that corporate limits of the town. We got to think about the greater area of Lake Placid and how that's going to help the town of Lake Placid itself. Again, I mentioned we're working with the town right now on a downtown master plan. How does all of this feed and work with the goals and the visions of the downtown master plan and the development that may be coming into the downtown as well? So all of these things need to be thought of comprehensively as we work through this strategic planning process. So again, very high level tonight. Just by show of hands, how many folks were aware of the greater Lake Placid area and some of these historical subdivisions on the outskirts?
What year was the census taken in the population?
So this is just from last year. We use a product called Business Analyst through our GIS program, and it runs a market analysis using Experian and other market-driven variables.
Does that take into account the snow stuff, or is that just year-round?
So we did not pull seasonal, so this is permanent residents, but we can pull those numbers, yeah, with seasonal commuters, your functional population. Yeah, that's a good question, because that's another series of folks that are using your infrastructure as well, yeah.
The Sebring paper had it one time about 5 years ago, the Lyman population around Lake Placid was right around 32,000.
32,000? Okay. These numbers, at peak, considering your seasonal residents as well. Gotcha. Okay. Any questions from the commission, or? All right. Thank you all, appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it over to Brenda. She's going to close us out tonight, and we're going to talk about quality of life.
So we will be shifting our focus to quality of life, which is a term that's kind of talked about a lot when you're thinking about your strategic plan and the strategic planning process that we are on. When we talk about quality of life, we talk about the everyday experiences of living in Lake Placid. Examples include how easy it is to get around, access to services, how easy it is to start a business, raise a family, age in place, and just feel connected within the community. This section will be a reflection of conversations that we've had with community residents, stakeholders, and community leaders, and what we gathered from those conversations, meetings, and feedback. During our community conversations that we've had, our goal was to listen, acknowledge, and plan forward based on real experiences from the community and what they had to say as far as opportunities and challenges within the Lake Placid community. We asked residents and those who attended our community conversations to openly talk about what's working within Lake Placid and where we may need to improve. What stood out was the strong sense of pride within the town, paired with very practical concerns about growth, services, and infrastructure. When we asked about the greatest assets, several themes rose to the top, and those included that people love the small town community feel and the importance of both the youth and our elderly populations, as well as the role of small businesses within shaping the identity of the city. Location was also brought up a couple of times, and Lake Placid is seen as a place with strong potential just because of where it's located within the region. Along with those strengths, the community was also very honest about challenges, and those challenges included infrastructure, especially water, wastewater, stormwater, and transportation. Residents also emphasized the need for healthcare services, better youth engagement opportunities, and thoughtful planning as the town continues to grow. Oh, sorry, yes. We also discussed mobility, and the community shared that desire for more options and better connections. Some of the ideas to consider regarding mobility is to increase transportation choices through public-private partnerships, such as ride shares, dedicating more funding towards transportation and improving trail connections, both within town and the surrounding area. Overall, people wanted mobility solutions that support residents of all ages, and not just drivers. And the concepts and ideas that I'm going to be sharing here today are just things to get you thinking about what your strategic plan you would want it to look like. We will be asking a few questions to get a little bit more of your prioritization and ideas, but these are just things that the community has shared with us, and just to consider of what you would like to implement and apply within your strategic plan. So we also covered housing, and they provided the feedback of providing more code enforcement, clear, concise process for new development, so eliminating development hurdles, provide home repair for the elderly through community partnerships, and the need for more affordable housing and housing options. For health and wellness being, they wanted to see parks to serve different age groups and generations, include programs linking multiple generations, and then providing special programming for special needs communities, as well as provide health education for wellness and disease prevention, and promote fitness use of the trails, and provide fitness centers and classes. I believe I'm missing a slide, but I'll touch on economic stability. Residents also shared that the importance of keeping Lake Placid visible, business-friendly, and welcoming in new investments while still supporting existing businesses. Ideas included small business incubators, training opportunities, removing development hurdles, encouraging residents to shop local, and exploring alternative revenue sources beyond property taxes. There was also a strong interest in exploring exposing young people to entrepreneurship early on. So again, like I said, these are just all elements regarding quality of life and things to consider as you prioritize and we develop our goals and strategies within the strategic plan. I will turn it over to Mary Beth, who will be facilitating our poll today, and I can also answer any questions you may have.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us here today. Again, my name is Mary Beth Soderstrom with the Regional Planning Council. So to kind of move our conversation in the direction, so I was thinking about, what is the purpose of today's meeting versus the other sessions we're going to have? And a kickoff really determines the direction of where we're going, right? So as we have talked about some revenue, some maybe opportunities that might be there, kind of the landscape and what it looks like. Where are we as far as what the community truly looks like, both within the town and then everything surrounding the town and how those play together. And then what we've already heard from the community. And as community members, right, like I hope that those things kind of rang true with you or were at least somewhere in where you could see, I could see how somebody might say that. And so we try to keep it light tonight. So I have just 2 questions that we're gonna work through, and we can chat as much as you would like to, and all of our speakers are still here, so I'm gonna refer to them for questions. But if you would go to pollev.com/HL2060, so you can go, if you have your phone, you can go in your browser. You could use that QR code, and that'll take you directly to the question. Or you can also just do it by basic texting. So you could text, let's see, the number that you text to is 22333, and then the text you send is HL2060, and it'll get you connected in with our system. Does that make sense? Really? And the first thing that we kind of we're going to explore a little bit is how can we improve the quality of life in Lake Placid? This is going to be a word cloud, which means try to keep your answer a little shorter, but as words up. Okay, so now if we could switch over to the display, and I will still have the other pieces if you still need to log in or you need help with that. And we'll see some of the results come in, and then we can discuss. Oh, I have responses. You know what? I wonder, I'm sorry, I apologize. I think how we have it set up, you're acting as a participant versus a viewer up there on that screen. All right, well, I think, although it's really pretty when you see the word cloud, I don't know, I might just have to share with what we've got. So the first word that I am seeing pop up very large is generations, which means at least a few people said something to do with generations. Is there anything related to that anybody would like to expand on when it goes to improving the quality of life and generations? So people have been putting their results in, and I apologize, the results aren't on the screen up there, so it's kind of hard to see. But when we're asking, how can we improve the quality of life in Lake Placid? So people in the room are saying things like growth, generations, recreation, lakes, parks, younger, restaurants, friendly, grow, protect, retire, recreation. I apologize. So more, if any of those words were some of your words that you put forward, if you want to expound or share kind of why, somebody said charming. We know why we're charming, but how can we improve the quality of life in Lake Placid? Do we want to be more charming?
Connect our creators like us
Okay. Creating connections between, let's see, what else is coming up? Yeah.
I was showing it so they could see that this is what she's referring to, when it should have generated and created what they call a word cloud. So she's pulling it from there, and the main one that's sticking out, where the one I'm hovering over says knowledge, but on her screen, it's generation. So that was the predominant word that was coming up through the poll.
And if you want to take it for a minute, I can try and get this up, because it's way more fun when we can see everybody's answer. Just talk.
It's no problem. Song and dance.
Is everyone confused by the, was everyone able to sign in? We were just trying to take some simple polls. Did you take the picture of the QR code? Can we go back to the, if you want to?
Yeah, can you just go back to the presentation and then?
There we go. If you take a picture of that code, you should get a little box at the bottom, and you click on it, it should open up that.
I'll go, yeah, a little bit.
Sure.
For those who haven't done a word cloud activity like this, what's really neat about it is the more often respondents submit a word, the bigger the word gets. So you get to see all of the answers on the screen, but as themes start to present themselves, that word will start getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what Mary Beth was referring to as she was looking at that word cloud, which she's going to be sharing here in just a minute. That was kind of like the big word that was showing up. But all of your answers were showing, so that data is still being received. But she was trying to identify kind of that main theme and see if any of you who may have answered with that word wanted to expand on what you meant by it. Is Mary Beth's not yelling at me, so I think I'm on track with what she was saying. So she's getting close. And now you know her password. It's ... So you can hack into all of her stuff. And the other thing we talked about in the planning meeting coming up to this, the planning for the planning, was we're really looking for those answers in some of these questions that Mary Beth is sharing so that we can kind of use those to kind of drive the agenda for the future meetings. You know, the things that you're interested in, the things that you're commenting on are things that we can bring forward. And now Mary Beth is going to bail me out and jump back on the microphone.
Okay. See, this makes it make more sense, right? All right, so how can we improve the quality of life in Lake Placid? Ultimately, the strategic plan, the goal of the strategic plan is to improve the quality of life. Well, how do we go about getting there? So some of the different things that we talked about today, you know, is there, let's see, and it's going to keep jumping around as people add in, but park and recreation and activities, lakes, all of that stuff is really coming to the top. Are there certain aspects of those features of our community that we feel are missing? Or do we think we need just more of what we have? Or do, yeah?
I'm not really testing on the phone.
That's okay.
But we need the multi-use paths to interconnect our community with the downtown area.
What would that do for the community to connect the multi-use path into the downtown?
Safe way for the kids to get to school.
Okay.
Alternate transportation plan.
Exercise.
Exercise.
Your ability to get to the trailheads, which would be the parks, school system, the circle, downtown area, safety without using an automobile.
Walkability, you know, the ability for people to walk like, walk their dog on a trail path. I think paths in general, whenever you see multi-purpose paths in communities, it becomes, you know, in some cases, most valuable properties
So I'm definitely hearing a lot of, okay. Okay. I was going to say, I feel like you're going to get some volunteers really fast to tell you, but yeah, absolutely. So it's one thing to have amenities, but if we don't know how to find those amenities, or if visitors from the outside can't find those amenities when they're here, it doesn't always make for the best visit. So if we can improve their visit, right, that improves how much they spend. That it all trickles down. Okay, I have to ask, pork chops.
It's dinner time. I see barbecue.
Right, and barbecue.
And it's time to eat.
So we can improve the quality of life in Lake Placid with more barbecue? Is that what that's what we're hearing? Okay. Listen.
There should be a barbecue festival or something, a signature event that we might be known for. If that's something that a lot of people in the community are known for, that's something you can maybe build off of and think about incorporating it into kind of your brand and your image.
Okay, so people are excited. You know what? Now that you say that, there is not. All right. Okay. So we've heard. All right. Walkability, trails, multi-use paths, all connected, especially trying to get connections from the residential areas into the downtown.
Greater Lake Placid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can increase the tax base, everybody can have.
All right, there's a few words here, and this is also a theme that we've heard before, but if anybody here wants to kind of dig in a little bit more, or help give us kind of direction of what we need to be looking for, or as we go through these different sessions, what are the questions that should be asked, or on generation, children, we've heard about like youth and opportunities for youth or activities for youth. Within that realm, recreation kind of loosely goes with that. So do we not have the, let's see, is it that there's nothing to do, or is it that there's a perception that there's nothing to do? Because sometimes those are two different things.
A lot of times it's the families that work, they gotta work 2 jobs, 24 hours a day. You don't have time to take their kids to something like that, or have them money for something like that. It's the economy right now.
Okay, so there might be things to do, but access and financial reasons might hinder that.
I have a question about a generation answer. You mentioned activities. I raised 2 boys, so there was basketball, baseball, soccer, but all the youth sports. So a lot of times so there's a lot of activities, I'm assuming, here in Lake Placid as well for the youth, but is the people answering that question saying that there's not activities for the other generations, like there's not adult
There's activities,
leagues?
there's no way to communicate for these kids how to sign up.
Gotcha.
We don't have a newspaper, we don't have a radio station, we don't have a TV station. Communication in this town is terrible.
No, I'm just saying, I slam our kids and everything. Some of the churches.
In the schools.
The reason I said that is maybe pickleball, and then I saw generations, so I'm wondering if maybe they feel like there's a gap in activities for the different generations.
Yeah.
We talked to the middle school kids, we do Youth for Christ, and there was talk of, I guess, leasing the park out to some other organization. But the kids told us before I even found that out,
fishing pier, yeah.
On the other side, yep. At Bishop Park.
And the kids do ride their bikes, and there is no sidewalk down
Can't get the bus places down the line. We've been fighting for 20 years.
They want a track too, but they put a sidewalk out here.
And the parents of a lot of the youth want after-school activities. Okay, sports, but everybody doesn't play baseball, and a lot of the sports are organized, except for our youth baseball league. It's organized at the school sports. So, you know, it's a lot of the kids, you know, it's like after school, you see them just hanging around somewhere. So there is not a lot, there's no organized things like that. Now, on the flip side, for the seniors, what they told us when we went around and campaigned is, there's not much in the town for the seniors. There are no organized activities. So, you know, I know a lot of the bigger cities will have a full-time recreation department where they have the combination of both, and you're bringing the seniors and the youth together. A lot of the seniors said, hey, we'll help tutor. They would be glad to volunteer and get involved in things like that. So I think those are the items that I put on, is that the feedback is, try to invest in our youth. What is there to do for the youth in the town? You know, the bicycling, you know, bicycle rodeos. They gave us a lot of ideas, too, of where they came from. Somebody came from another city that had some type of activities like that. So that, to me, is the generational, you know, and of course, let's not forget the in-between generation, too. But that's kind of the what's missing, how we could improve Lake Placid. And again, not just for the town, but it's the greater Lake Placid.
Music, yes. Is there live music anywhere on a regular basis? There is, okay.
But that's not for the youth. That's like in the evening, down there.
Yeah, but the people that don't drink don't go to the bar.
Right, okay.
You know, the kids are too young to go to the. In some places, maybe the churches can have music, the band, you know, just different bands like they do at the Highlands Park once in a while, they have bluegrass or whatever. That would bring all the people together.
Well, and you have Journal Plaza, but that's not just for people that drink, because there's the ice cream place there, there's the coffee place there. I mean, it just so happens that the entertainment is usually at the Wet Dog side, but oftentimes on Saturday at least, it's outdoors, and you have that big area, that grass area, and kids go and play their soccer, they chase their ball or do whatever. So that's a nice area that Ken got built down there. It looks good, Ken.
We had some good feedback also for music in the park for the families and the youth. You know, you set the band up in the gazebo, people can bring their blankets, they can bring their, you know, the little lawn games and then that brings people together. So it was a broader than, you know, I appreciate Journal Plaza, but it was like, wow, we've got this beautiful Devane Park. Is there something with music in the park, karaoke, something along that?
And so it sounds like there's definitely interest in more organization of recreation activities in some way, shape, or form for different groups. Potentially adding amenities to our current parks. Getting to the parks is a thing, right? Like that's on our infrastructure list. And I apologize.
No, I was just going to, we also found out when we were knocking on doors, there were some people would say that they worry about the teenage kids because they go out of town to find entertainment, and then sometimes they drive home after a couple of beers, and they would really like to keep their teenage kids, the 18-year-olds and so forth, in town.
Yeah, I have an answer for the park, the Bishop Park, water park. The tariffs came and the equipment went sky high, so she's still going to do it, but it was put off for a year to give time for the tariffs and that sort of thing to recoup for the additional cost. I also had a conversation with the gentleman for maybe bringing YMCA here. He's very gung-ho. I don't think we need to talk to somebody about that, because that would solve a lot of our problems. But it goes all back to connectivity again, too. Now, we had a beach volleyball set up over by the middle school for years. I never saw one person playing out there, not one time, and I live downtown. I never saw anybody using it, so they finally just did away with it. But I think it goes back to connectivity, too. These children can't get to in town. I mean, it's all drivability, and they don't drive. So how can the youth participate in town when they ride their bus home and they can't get back? So I don't know if the connectivity would be the trails and paths to be able to come back in, because then you're letting your youth go out there to the world. But I'm just saying that has been a big of the problem. It's not that we don't have some facilities that we could expand on, but how are you going to get those kids here when their parents are working 2 jobs and there's nobody to drive them here and they can't get here? That's a hard nut, but I do think that we should maybe try to go do a reach out to maybe YMCA and to some of these organizations that have programs. And then the children could stay in school and maybe stay there until the parents get off work and come pick them up, and now we've got it all solved.
Ask and you shall
Easy as
receive.
that. There we go.
I have a meeting actually scheduled tomorrow. He's coming to the office tomorrow at 10.
Great.
Is that wonderful? Okay, that was fast action.
There we go. That's crazy. All right. Let's see. Anything? So one of the questions I wanted to ask, because I'm trying to see, I don't think I see it. So how about art, right? You know, the first time I ever came to Lake Placid, obviously the murals are what you pay attention to. If you Google Lake Placid, the murals, right? But I'm not seeing that. I haven't heard anything about that. So public art, is there an interest in continuing that tradition? Is that something that you guys would see as a benefit to the quality of life? Okay.
I was going to say, I think it depends on who you attract to, because we do have art classes that would probably participate in that. I believe Mr. LeBlanc and I have had this conversation, because in some communities they have the downtown where they'll allow them to come down and they'll do the like the chalk art is what he talked about. And so some of the art classes would like to do that, but it goes back to the facilitation. Who's going to facilitate it? How do we bridge that gap? Because we do work with very limited resources in the town. We had the the groundbreaking today for the police department, and the largest comment that we heard was, we did not realize that the town worked with so little staff and pulled everything off. So putting that into perspective, as Councilwoman Charles said, is we don't have a recreation department, and then we have to find a way to be able to fund that. Or or is there a way we can connect with the schools, create a program or something? I think that's where bringing them to the table. Right.
Partnerships, finding those right partners.
But on that note, South Florida College just opened up an art lab. Okay. And they're it's reaching out to the community in art classes, and it's, I think it's a month old, if even that. So I think that's something that as it becomes known, because I asked her today, how's that doing? She said, it's good, but they've got to get the word out more, because it's parents and kids, and it's 2 days a week, two evenings a week for different art activity.
Okay. Connecting that. And I think that also ties back to some of our initial conversations or comments about communication. How do you find out about what are the things? All right. I'm going to go to the last question. Let's see. Okay, so this question is, what do you think the key principles of this strategic plan should be? And remember, when we were talking about key principles, it's those bigger overarching kind of topics like infrastructure, recreation, like those kinds of overarching words, to be able, again, to give us direction and to have these next conversations. What should these key principles be considering? Okay, I think, let's see. Yeah, you might have to change that one, Cheryl. Yep, there you go. Too. Thank you. All right, so livability is currently taking the lead. Growth, controlled management, infrastructure, jobs,
I think communication, I think that we can start, we've been here 3 years too, and we don't even never know what it's out.
Well, you made it here tonight. How did you find out about tonight?
I just got it in the mail today.
Okay.
I found out when I wrote this one.
Okay.
I'm trying to stop the business here, and I'm trying to get more involved in the community, and because of her, I found out, otherwise, a lot of the stuff that was happening, the parade, I didn't even know that was happening, so I ran across it for the public. So it's not advertised, there's no way of the commercial or something like that on television or radio. I heard on the radio, part of that, but everything that you're secret, I don't hear nothing from Placid.
But where would you connect with that? I mean, is radio the answer? Is Facebook the answer? Where would you expect to see these things? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I understand TV is different because you have everyone with the internet, with the cable and so on. I personally don't. But at least radio, at least the information that I have been getting recently has been on the radio, but everything I hear has to do with Sebring.
Okay.
Anything about Lake Placid.
Okay. They have,
Community boards somewhere?
on the radio, they have Heartland Happenings. We have one radio station, has 4 different stations, one radio provider, and it has Heartland Happenings. And you, as an organization leader, I have to contact them and give them my item or whatever it is. But Heartland Happenings comes on 2 or 3 times a day on all of these radio stations. I don't know exactly when, but it's available and it's out there. So, and Heartland Happenings is motivated by the people like me who are presidents of organizations or whatever that submit those things to Heartland Happenings. So.
Okay.
The other thing that I hear from Wawa, you see all these retired veterans that sit up there, and sometimes they're promoting what's going on in town. That's how I find out stuff.
Okay.
But not because I see any billboards or see any advertisement or anything locally.
We can't put signs because the planner over there says we can't put signs. Every time we put signs out, she pulls them up. Oh, there'd be a fine. You gotta have a permit.
All right, I'm looking at the words coming up. Jennifer, are there any that you have questions about that you want us to get any clarification on? No.
I'm curious about the answer growth. Lots of people put growth, but are you wanting more growth, less growth? Are you wanting to grow the boundaries of the city? Are you wanting to grow, I mean,
have planned, or in my mind, proper annexation, and then you can have growth. But you're right, Ken, a lot of the previous folks that have sat in these seats didn't want any growth, but you have to grow. But you have to grow sensibly. You can't grow without your infrastructure. You can't just grow like cancer. You have to grow with some planning.
Yeah, but we have a lot of infrastructure. You know, with $40 million sewer, which is helpful.
But we have to run the lines, Ken.
And those types of things.
That's great, we have a plant, we have to run the lines. We have no money to run the lines.
Well, that's.
So there you go. I mean, it's kind of a catch-22.
The flip side is rational growth, because a lot of people have moved here because of those first charts. Quaint little town. And so they came from, and this is what they told us, we knocked on doors, they came from Vero Beach, they came from Port St. Lucie, and now even the people in Sarasota, the overdevelopment that's taken place because of the interest to grow. And a lot of people don't like that. So the whole balance is growth, yes, but rational growth. Do you put big box stores downtown? Where do you put them? Where do you overdevelop? Where now we, you know, a lot of us, I've only been here 17 years, 2 stoplights. Now we're going to be 4. Well, soon it's going to be a lot more, and are we going to be like a Sebring with a stoplight every so far? So that's the balance, right? Why do we like this town? Small, quaint town. And now this session, grow, because we want all this stuff and bring everybody in and overdevelop, and then you're going to, it'll be interesting. Let's just leave it like that. It is, it's a balance, and that's why it's rational growth, not, you know, let's just grow to grow.
But you have the population already coming here. So you have to at least sustain what you currently have, me being one of them. Because I moved here 6 months ago, and I lost my job, I'm trying to open up a business, trying to find a job, trying to do all kinds of things, and it's very limited. I understand that I personally came here because of the small town, like you're saying, but at the same time, there's not enough here within the town to be able to survive if you want to, without having to go outside of this town.
That's the challenge, right?
Right.
That's the challenge.
I think the word growth is showing up big, but it's skewed. What's lost is there's the words controlled growth, reasonable, rational, and so forth.
Smart.
But because they all use the same word growth is getting a big billing. That is not that people want growth, they want all the adjectives along with it.
I think, though, that's where I'm going to be the one that talks on the generations aspect, because we are known as a retirement community, but as you see from the census, we are no longer a retirement community. The median age is between 44 to 46. So what that means is that they want to live in this area, but they want to have the offerings, and that's where it's the hard divide and the join of the bridge of the generations. Because yes, people move here to retire, but the reality is a lot of what we want to keep here are our legacy families who have said we want to keep our children and our grandchildren here. And so they're being able to keep them here because we're being able to grow in other areas, but now they're going to Sebring, or they're still traveling to other areas because we haven't grown enough. And that's the feedback that I've received.
So then the question is if this place is growing and everybody talks about it growing and there's nothing to offer, why are people coming here? Why are people coming here? I personally say that I came here because, like you said, it's a small town feeling.
Correct.
But at the same time, I can't survive. But there's going to be limitations. There's a trade-off. There's always going to be a trade-off. I moved here 10 years ago, not to retire here, but because of the atmosphere and because they said that there was limitations. But you have to work, right? Like you still like going to school. You still like going to walk. You still like going to listen to music. And that's what what I think is needed for the age group between 30 and 60 before you actually retire. Right. But my point being is that, okay, you came here.
Hence the reason for developing a strategic plan. These are conversations that are circular and ongoing. With that, we have two last questions to end the night. One is mine, based on the Wordle. What does empowerment mean? That came up in the questioning, and just wondered if anybody would want to shed any light on that. But empowerment is up there. Oh, it's now towards the bottom right. But that can mean so many things. And I know the town continues to work on ongoing transparency. Is that related to transparency, or is that overall the community champions taking ownership of the path forward? What does that mean?
I would think it would mean giving the population that causes downfall, even if it's beyond the resident, right? Giving them the ability to participate if they choose to, meaning you have boards, you have different ways that they can get involved, committees, things like that. That's a way to empower people. So give them some way that their voice can be heard to help guide the path as the town grows. And there's various ways that people need people's help, all kinds of things having to do with parks and recreation, livability and things like that, right? Paths that Robert talks about. We have some group that's working on paths. We have CRA, we have other things.
The regional utility. I think it's also giving access to the information. It's the shared decision-making, but then having access to the information so that it's out there for everybody for transparency. So we've been increasing that in the town, making sure that even down to our financials, they're being explained in meetings now, where it's being broken down, where they understand it better, where the sources are, where the constraints are. And the capacity building, I think, is another one. Having the skills and the knowledge and the resources to develop properly.
I think that communication is everything. I think that during some of these recreation, discussions, where's the pool? You need to build a pool. Well, we don't have a full-time pool, but the high school, when they're not in session, has a pool. They have swimming lessons. They have it open to the public, but nobody knows that. So they all think there isn't one. Well, there is one, and it does have some restraints, but they even have lessons. I'd like to see, people Florida has more water, I think, than any other state could possibly have, and we have ponds and lakes and beachfront, and people need to know how to swim, but nobody even knows it exists. And I did talk to the lady, and we'll be getting a schedule for the summer, but maybe we need to let the public know. Now, I'm saying that these aren't just, we hear a lot from the county residents, but they think that, of course, the town should build a swimming pool because they want a swimming pool. But we have one. We cooperate as a small town with the school for the tennis courts and for the pool. And it's sad that people just don't know.
Back to that communication component. We have one final question, I promise. This dialogue is very, very helpful. But in so many communities, just across the country and literally across the world, they struggle with the same challenge. Why did we come here? That small town feel. But so many folks also come. And of course, we're in a high growth state overall. So our last question for you tonight is, when you think of the places you've been or lived that have achieved that ultimate goal, where they were faced with growth, but they were able to maintain that small town character, but still were able to see the opportunities for growth, where are those areas? And I think what we're seeing here is kind of back to some of the concepts that have kind of morphed over the years, but these areas where they are high growth areas have preserved that core sense of community downtown. And then built in those greater areas, Mount Dora, I think of the area on the lake, those small local businesses, the transitional area where I may have owned a home and now I'm allowed to also have my planning office and maybe my home in the back. And maybe over time, it'll morph into a full-time planning office. But these communities here have been able to achieve that goal of keeping that small town core, but bringing their character on the periphery where they have grown or annexed, for example. And all of these have walkability, all those things that you all said, that connectivity to even what may be in their community, but preserving that charm. Okay.
I have to say, you know, being on the tourism board and that, I think one of our biggest assets are our people. And this is what I hear, in addition to our beautification and different things we try to do, people love it here because people are just nice. They open the door for you. I mean, even you can go to other small areas, they're just not nice, but that is a real compliment, but that is our people. And that's whether they're in the town or not in the town. They're kind to each other. They're good to each other. And I don't know how you preserve that. I don't know. But I know that that is probably our biggest asset we possibly could have.
And it's contagious.
I was going to comment on that as well because Dana Riddell, our town planner, we met with a developer right before the holidays. And he does business in 21 countries and only does business 5% in the United States. And we asked him what attracted him to the Lake Placid area, and he smiled. And I smiled back, and he said, "Your teeth, you smile. We get to see you smile, and you're pleasant." And so I caveat that because it's definitely what they say is we're a friendly town, and it gives them that warmth of welcomeness that they're all here. And Jennifer, before we close out, I just want to say Mr. Small had a comment he wanted to make for the public as well when we go to close out.
Nope, that is all of our questions, and we'll also go back to the original PowerPoint so we can have the workshop information up as we have public comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. I just want to make it clear that the revenues that I spoke about today were those that you have abilities to control and levy or not levy. There's a lot of other revenues that are state shared, local option. They're all formula driven, so there's nothing you can really do about them. You just get what they produce to you. On the property tax, I left out a part that I thought was quite important. Save Our Home started back in 92. 95 it was implemented. Around 2003, 4, 5, 6, property values took off and the legislature came in and said we got to do something about property taxes are skyrocketing because values are skyrocketing. They keep saying that local government is out of control on raising property taxes. Well, back in the 03, 04, 05, 06 timeframe, they amended the law that says when you levy your millage rate, it said if you're going to increase above the rollback rate, it's going to take a supermajority vote to go up to 10%. This is in Chapter 200. If you want to exceed a 10% increase, the statute says you have to have a unanimous vote. And their rationale was this will solve the property taxes going up because in one instance, 2 commissioners can keep it below 10%. No, you have one commissioner can keep you from going from rollback to plus 10%. Okay, my brain's not working right now. A 4-1 vote can raise you to that. 2 commissioners can block it. If you're going to go above 10% above the rollback rate, it says you have to have a unanimous vote, and 1 commissioner can stop it. And the legislature said that if the issues are so strong that they have to go above 10%, all commissioners have to agree to it. And if there's one that doesn't, then they can block it. And they put that in there and said that should solve our problem. So when they say they're totally out of control, those are limitations that they put in there to try to solve the problem. So I just wanted to add that one part.
Thank you. Are we all good? I think it's been very good. Thank you for everyone who has attended. On the screen, you will see that we have a community survey that is floating around. It was a little long initially. However, we're trying to get as much feedback as possible. Mary Beth was working on simplifying that a little bit. We also have the upcoming dates for the future strategic planning sessions. The next 2 sessions will take place not in the council chambers. It will actually take place in the community room, so it will be a little bit more informal. So that will be on Tuesday, February 3rd, with the local businesses and faith-based organizations. The third one will be for the Town of Lake Placid residents on February 18th, and we have a wrap-up session that will take place here in the council chambers on March 4th. All of them will start at 5:30 and tentatively go from 5:30 to 7:30, and I'm looking at the clock and it is 7:26, so we all did great. Thank you so much for coming.